tapping into pronunciation for 24 consecutive days. Here's how it went. Hi, Vicky Kelty, your American English guide, back with another episode of the Language Learning Report Card podcast. My study stats, I had 137 minutes of focused pronunciation practice. In my leisure stats, I dived into, among other things, a Christmas movie from Santiago Segura, which I loved because I love all the stuff that he does. I think it's so witty. And and of course, the Christmas Spanish Wheel of Fortune episodes, which I also love. I love Wheel of Fortune in general, but the Christmas ones, those are the best. So, my pronunciation practice. Here's how it went. If you listened to the episode, What Would You Do for 24 Days to Improve Your English already? Then you know that I wanted to do something with my advent calendars. And one of the things that I decided to do for Spanish was to focus on pronunciation. So my challenge was to read a Bible verse in Spanish, but like really, really focusing on the pronunciation, using the tricks that my Spanish pronunciation teacher had given me, and really, really doing some intense, not intense, just like focused speaking, just reading. I mean, I could have read anything. I decided to do Bible verses because for me, it's the holiday season leading up to the holiday Christmas, which I celebrate. And so it made sense to do Bible verses. Actually, I chose like themes. So, like Bible verses that related to peace or not worrying. And that inspiration came from my program, Voice Message Speaking Practice, where the things that we talk about are themes. So we have a theme for every week and then a question on that theme. So instead of a question, I was reading a Bible verse. And those Bible verses ended up having their own challenges within them because I I don't know if you've ever read the Bible. It has vocabulary that you maybe wouldn't use on a daily basis. So there are some words that I hadn't seen before that were trickier to pronounce or even to understand. And so as the 24 days went on, I was going down rabbit holes of what does this even mean? And so then I was Googling the meaning of these Bible verses and reading that, but also reading those analysis that I found with my Spanish pronunciation that I'd been practicing. So, like, everything came back to the pronunciation. That was my focus always. That was the big, bright goal. Like, that I was heading towards. And even though the Bible verses were quite complex, I didn't let that get me down because I was like, oh man, is my Spanish like that rusty that, I mean, I'm around it all the time. How can it be so rusty? No. Bible verses are their own magic language. So I said, no, 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 no. You are not going to get down on yourself for not understanding some of these terms and not being able to pronounce them as well as regular terms that you would use on a daily basis. Focus on the goal at hand. Don't get sidetracked by something else. And so I stayed positive and focused on pronunciation. And I had a really good time because pronunciation in Spanish, although in theory it's an easy language to pronounce words because they're supposed to be like you pronounce them how they look. For me, there are certain letters like the R that I find really difficult to make sound how Spanish people around me make it sound. And so that's why I do activities like this where I spend extra time working on this, trying to train my tongue to move in the way it's supposed to, or to at least copy a little more closely to what the people around me are doing. And actually, that leads me into the next thing that I wanted to say is that afterwards, I didn't do this for all of my messages, not even close. But for some of the messages, I would go back and listen to some of the things I was saying because one thing is how you think you sound, and another thing is how you actually sound. And so listening back to what you have recorded when you record yourself speaking, which is something that I do when I'm doing like this focused solo speaking practice. When I listen back to my messages, I can see how it's going with using these pronunciation tricks that my teacher had taught me. And if you have listened to my French Advent Calendar Challenge, you'll know that I also worked with a teacher for that. I felt really supported by French and Spanish teachers during this Advent Calendar Challenge that I did for both languages. So, whoop whoop, shout out to language teachers and all they do. So gratitude their way. In the end, my 24 days with Spanish was just a perfect example of what you can do with solo speaking. So, if that is something that you want to know more about, be sure to go to the link in the description or head over to my website, vickykelty.com, where I have a free mini course that you can get a guide to doing solo speaking for yourself. And you can focus on whatever aspect of English that you want to with your own practice. And yeah, in a nutshell, that's how my Spanish pronunciation practice went. It was actually really easy practice, really easy to show up every day. I really enjoyed it. That's not to say that I would keep doing it daily, though. I enjoyed doing it for the 24 days. There were some days that did require a little extra effort than other days because I was like, oh my gosh, not again. But it was nice to have that focused practice for 24 days and remind myself of the tips that my teacher had given me and remind myself you have to keep doing this on a regular basis. It just like with exercise that you can't leave it. You have to have some sort of consistency with it. It doesn't need to be daily, but it needs to have some sort of consistency. And obviously with Spanish, it's much easier because I'm around Spanish all the time being in Spain, but the same can be said for French. Like you need to have the consistency. But since my goal was the pronunciation and that's something that I want to continue to strengthen and to keep strong, like keep it at the level it is and move up, then this is something that I will continue to practice. So, like, I have it in my head now when I go into conversations. And because I was practicing it in the background, it helps me when I am like, quote unquote, publicly doing it, when I go and have conversations with people, because I'm like, okay, remember those tricks that you've been practicing for 24 days, use them. So, maybe if you take a look around, there's something in your daily life that will give you a push to do something with your English speaking. Be sure to send me an email if you get an idea of something, because I would love to hear what you've been inspired to practice. You can email me at hola@vickykelty.com. And if you haven't listened to what I did for the French Advent Calendar Challenge, be sure to check that out. And also to check out the What Would You Do for 24 Days to Improve Your English episode, because those go great with today's episode. So all the challenge tips you could possibly ask for in each of those. And that's it from me. Happy language practice in whatever you decide to do with your English. Can't wait to hear what it is. Bye now.